My name is Julia Foster, and at 32, I've built a life I once thought impossible. I'm a data analyst in Orlando, Florida, leading projects at a thriving tech company and earning more than I ever imagined. My apartment overlooks the city skyline, bright and alive, a world away from where I came from. But no matter how far I'd climbed, the past had a way of finding me. And one autumn evening, it did, with a knock on my door that would change everything. When I was 9, my world fell apart. My mother, Marie Stone, walked out on my dad and me after their marriage crumbled. One evening, she grabbed a suitcase and left without a word. Dad later told me she'd fallen for another man, a man who promised her a better life. She didn't just leave our home, she disappeared. For years, all I got were hollow birthday cards with neat, impersonal handwriting. "Hope you're doing well," they'd say. But her absence said everything. Dad, David Foster, tried to keep us afloat with his small diner on the edge of town. It was a greasy spoon. Eggs, pancakes, burgers, coffee that never stopped brewing. He worked from dawn until midnight, scrubbing counters and smiling through exhaustion. Some nights, he came home with less than $50, but he always asked about my day, pretending the weight of the world wasn't on his shoulders. His hands were cracked from the grill, his back bent from long hours, but his spirit never broke. I'll never forget him whispering, "You're stronger than our circumstances, Jules. You can do anything." At 13, I couldn't stand seeing him struggle alone. I babysat for neighbors, stocked shelves at the corner store, even delivered newspapers before sunrise. I'd slip my earnings into his wallet when he wasn't looking. He always scolded me gently, saying, "You're supposed to be a kid." But I couldn't stop. Every dollar mattered. Every bit of help was a way to fight the silence my mother left behind. School became my escape. I joined math club, buried myself in problem sets until my eyes ached. The numbers made sense when life didn't. I worked for every grade, every scholarship, every glimmer of a future that wasn't defined by the diner's broken neon sign. By the time I hit 17, my grades caught the attention of a guidance counselor who helped me land a full scholarship to a state university. Data analytics clicked for me. The patterns, the logic, the control. I promised myself I'd never be powerless again. College was brutal but freeing. Tuition was covered, but food, rent, and books were on me. I waited tables, filed papers at a law firm, and cleaned offices late at night. My alarm rang at 5 a.m. I'd collapse into bed after midnight. There was no safety net, no backup plan, just grit and caffeine. But I pushed through. Every paycheck was proof that I was building something real. By graduation, I had a degree, awards, and a job offer in Orlando. Moving there felt like breathing for the first time. I started as a junior analyst, spent nights crunching data until my eyes blurred, and climbed to a senior role in 5 years. For the first time, I could afford to exhale. My salary wasn't just money, it was freedom. I bought Dad a new fridge when his broke, sent him $500 a month to help with bills, and later, helped repair the diner's leaky roof. He always said, "You've done enough." But I knew I'd never repay everything he'd sacrificed. My mother, meanwhile, stayed a ghost. Her card still arrived once a year, colder than ever. "Happy birthday, Julia. Hope life's treating you well." No calls, no visits. Just those empty words in expensive stationery. Sometimes I'd find myself staring at them, wondering if she ever thought about me, or if guilt was too inconvenient for her new life. But I learned to shove those thoughts away. I had my own life now. A stable career, loyal friends, and peace, or so I thought. That autumn evening, around 7 p.m., a sharp knock echoed through my apartment. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, my breath caught. There she was, Marie Stone, older, polished, wearing the same faint perfume I remembered from childhood. Beside her stood a young man with restless energy, his hands buried in his pockets. My half-brother, Caleb Grant. I hadn't seen either of them in more than 20 years. "Julia," Mom said, her smile wide but rehearsed. "My sweet girl, it's been too long." She wrapped her arms around me, and I froze. Her warmth felt like a performance. Caleb muttered a lazy, "Hey," his eyes glued to his phone. We sat in my living room, the air thick with awkward silence. Mom's gaze flicked over the apartment, lingering on the skyline view and designer furniture. "You've done well for yourself," she said. Her tone was light, but her eyes were calculating. Then she got to the point. "Caleb's starting college soon. Tuition is $60,000. We could use your help. Just a little support. Maybe $3,000 a month." I blinked, unsure I'd heard her right. Caleb finally looked up and smirked. "Nice place," he said. "Kinda small, though, for someone making bank." His sneakers were on my coffee table, and something inside me cracked. I realized this wasn't a reunion. It was a shakedown. Mom leaned forward, her voice soft but insistent. "You've done so well, Julia." Family helps family. Family. The word burned like acid. I wanted to believe she was sincere, that maybe, finally, she'd come to make amends. But the hunger in her eyes told me the truth. She wasn't here for love. She was here for money. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother's smile, the one that never reached her eyes, and Caleb's mocking grin as he stretched out on my couch like he owned the place. The numbers still rang in my ears. 60,000 for tuition, 3,000 a month. They hadn't even tried to hide their entitlement. It wasn't just the money, it was the way they said it, as if I owed them, as if all my years of struggle meant nothing. By morning, I'd convinced myself to hear them out one last time. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe Mom really was trying to rebuild something. So when she texted, suggesting we meet at a cafe downtown at 10 a.m., I said yes. The place was bright and busy, sunlight filtering through the glass walls. I spotted them in the corner. Mom with her perfect posture and practiced smile. Caleb slouched in his seat, scrolling on his phone. I took a deep breath and walked over. "Julia, sweetheart," Mom said, standing to hug me again. I let her, but my arms hung at my sides. She launched straight into her performance, voice trembling with just the right amount of emotion. "I've missed you so much. You have no idea how hard it was to stay away." "Then why did you?" I asked quietly. Her eyes widened, all innocent surprise. "Your father made it impossible," she said, lowering her voice like we were sharing a secret. "He kept you from me, told me never to call. He wanted you all to himself." My stomach turned. I'd heard Dad cry her name in his sleep for years, hoping she'd call back, show up, anything. And now she was rewriting history, like he'd been the villain. I didn't interrupt. I wanted to see how far she'd go. She sighed dramatically. "I did what I could, Julia." Life wasn't easy. Caleb and I barely scraped by after my husband passed. I'm just trying to give him the opportunities I couldn't have. Her eyes shimmered with fake tears as she gestured to Caleb. Caleb finally looked up, his tone dripping with arrogance. Yeah, I need a car for college. Something decent, like a Mustang. And a new phone. Mine's ancient. I blinked. You're asking for a car and a phone? On top of the tuition? He rolled his eyes. You're loaded. What's the big deal? It's family, right? Mom placed a hand on his arm like she was calming him, then turned back to me with a forced smile. Don't mind him. He's just young. But he's right. You have so much, Julia. We only need a little help. Her tone was sugary, but her eyes were sharp. I could see the manipulation coiled behind them, waiting for me to give in. I took a slow sip of my coffee, keeping my voice steady. I worked for everything I have, I said. Dad and I had nothing after you left. You don't get to show up after 20 years and ask for handouts. Her mask slipped. The warmth vanished, replaced by cold fury. You're so ungrateful, she snapped. I gave you life, and this is how you repay me? Something inside me snapped, too. You gave me life, and then you walked away from it, I said. My voice shook, but I didn't care. You left Dad drowning in bills, left me wondering what I did wrong. You don't get to rewrite that now, Caleb scoffed. Figures. Dad said you'd be selfish. I turned to him, stunned. You mean your dad? Mom's new husband? He shrugged. Whatever. He told me about you. Said you were cold and stuck up just like your old man. The words burned, sharper than they should have. Mom crossed her arms, her voice rising. If you'd reached out, maybe things would have been different. I was 9, I shouted, slamming my hand on the table. The cafe went silent around us, all eyes suddenly on our corner. You sent cards. That's it. Don't you dare blame me for your choices. Mom's face flushed with anger. Caleb muttered something under his breath about me thinking I was better than them. The noise, the tension, it was too much. I stood, my chair scraping against the tile. I'm done here, I said, my voice shaking with rage. I don't owe you anything. Mom grabbed my wrist before I could leave, her nails digging into my skin. You'll regret this, Julia, she hissed, her voice low, almost trembling. We're family. You can't just turn your back on that. I pulled free, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Watch me, I said, and walked out, not looking back. Outside, the Florida sun was blinding, but I barely felt it. My hands trembled as I reached my car. I wanted to cry, but anger was stronger than grief. I'd spent years imagining a reunion that healed old wounds, but now I saw the truth. My mother wasn't here for love. She was here for what she could take. That afternoon, I tried to lose myself in work, but my phone buzzed relentlessly. Texts from an unknown number, each one angrier than the last. You're heartless. You owe us. You'll regret this. Then silence. I thought it was over, but just after 6 p.m., my apartment buzzer rang. My stomach dropped. When I opened the door, there they were, Mom and Caleb, standing in the hallway, uninvited. Mom's smile was tight this time, brittle. Caleb leaned against the wall, scrolling on his phone, like this was all just an inconvenience. We just want to talk, Mom said sweetly, though her eyes were sharp as glass. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. I told myself it would be easier to have a calm conversation than another public scene, but I was wrong. They sat on my couch like they belonged there, Mom clutching her purse tightly, while Caleb sprawled out, tossing his phone onto the coffee table. The tension in the air was thick, the kind that makes your skin prickle before anyone even speaks. I stayed by the kitchen counter, arms crossed, trying to keep a calm distance. Mom started with her usual soft tone, feigned concern dripping from every word. "Julia, I didn't mean for things to get so heated earlier," she said. "We just need to talk." "You're doing so well, and Caleb deserves a chance at the same." Caleb didn't even look at me. "Yeah, it's not like you're broke," he muttered, glancing around the apartment with open disdain. His gaze lingered on the art on my walls, the clean furniture, the city view glowing behind the glass. I said nothing, waiting for them to show their real intentions. It didn't take long. Mom leaned forward, her tone sharpening. "You have everything now. A good job, a beautiful home, no worries about money. Why not share a little? We're family." That word again. Family. I felt my jaw tighten. "You don't get to use that word like it still means something," I said quietly. She frowned, ignoring the jab. "You're being dramatic. I'm not asking for much. Caleb's college costs are steep, and without your help, we'll lose everything." I sighed, shaking my head. "Mom, you've been gone for 20 years. You didn't come to my graduation, didn't even call when Dad was in the hospital last year. And now you show up asking for money? That's not family. That's manipulation." Her lips tightened, but she tried to mask the flash of anger in her eyes. "You always were ungrateful," she hissed. "Ungrateful?" I snapped, stepping forward. "You left me with a father who worked himself half to death to keep food on the table." "You never once looked back. You don't get to come here and call me ungrateful because I won't fund your son's luxury life." Caleb scoffed, sitting up. "Luxury life? We're talking about college, not a vacation." I turned to him, exasperated. "You asked for a Mustang and a new phone." He shrugged. "A guy's gotta fit in." That was it. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "I think you both need to leave." Mom stood, her smile brittle. "We're not leaving until we sort this out," she said, walking toward my desk. "You must have savings, Julia." "Maybe we can make this easier for everyone." Something in her tone set off alarm bells. I moved closer, but before I could reach her, Caleb was already at my computer, fingers tapping at the keys. The screen glowed and my blood ran cold. He'd opened my banking app.
"What the hell are you doing?"
I shouted, rushing forward. Caleb didn't even flinch. "Relax, I was just looking." "You've got plenty of cash sitting there. I don't see what the big deal is." I grabbed the laptop, slamming it shut. "You had no right to touch that!" Mom stood beside him, voice defensive. "We weren't doing anything wrong. We just wanted to see what's possible." "You're so secretive about your money, Julia. It's not healthy to hoard it when your family is struggling." My hands were shaking as I opened the laptop again, checking the browser. My financial dashboard had been accessed. And worse, there were several failed login attempts from earlier that day. My heart thudded as realization dawned. "You tried to get into my accounts," I said quietly. Mom looked startled but not guilty, angry at being caught. "Don't be ridiculous." Then I saw it. An email in my inbox, forwarded from Dad's account to hers. It contained my employment details and salary. My throat went dry. "You hacked Dad's email," I said, my voice trembling with fury. Her expression faltered for half a second before hardening. "Your father's a failure," she spat. "Still running that pathetic diner, living in the past." "I had to find out how you managed to succeed. Clearly, you got more from me than from him." Caleb laughed softly. "Yeah, he's a loser. You should be thanking Mom. You wouldn't be this successful if you'd stayed with him." Something inside me snapped. I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. "Don't you ever talk about Dad like that again," You have no idea what he sacrificed for me, what he endured after she left. Mom's face twisted with irritation. You think you're better than us now. All that money's made you cold. No, I said. It's made me aware of who I can trust. I reached for my phone. Get out. Now, or I'm calling the police. Caleb rolled his eyes, but his voice wavered. Come on. You wouldn't call the cops on your own mom. I dialed 911 and held the phone up so they could see. Try me. Mom's facade shattered completely. Her voice turned venomous. You'll regret this, Julia. We're not finished. She grabbed Caleb's arm, yanking him toward the door. He muttered something under his breath, but I didn't care. I slammed the door behind them, locked every bolt, and stood there, shaking. The silence that followed was deafening. When I finally checked my computer again, I confirmed everything. Multiple failed attempts to access my bank account. Browser tabs open to password recovery pages. And that email from Dad's account. Proof she'd violated both our trust. The woman who gave me life had just tried to steal from me. I sat at my desk long after they left, my hands trembling as I stared at the flickering screen. The digital traces of their intrusion felt like fingerprints all over my life. Proof that my mother wasn't just desperate, she was dangerous. I should have known better. The soft smiles, the "we're family" talk. It was all a setup. What terrified me most wasn't what they'd done, but how easily I'd almost let them back in. My first thought was Dad. He needed to know what had happened. I dialed his number, and when his familiar, weary voice answered, I nearly broke down. Dad, I said, trying to steady my tone. She hacked your email. There was a pause on the other end, then a long sigh. I was afraid of that, he murmured. I noticed something strange a few weeks ago. Password reset requests I didn't make. I should have told you. She used it to find me, I said, anger welling in my chest. She's been reading your messages. That's how she knew where I live, what I earn, everything. Dad didn't sound surprised, only sad. That's Marie, he said quietly. She always found a way to twist what she wanted out of people. When she left, I thought she'd finally run out of ways to hurt us. Hearing the resignation in his voice broke me more than her betrayal. She's not the woman you knew anymore, I whispered. She came here demanding money, pretending she cared. Then she tried to steal from me. Dad was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice cracked. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I should have protected you from her. Even now. No, I said softly. You did enough. I just need to make sure she can't hurt us again. That night, I barely slept. My brain, trained to analyze patterns and threats, replayed every moment. The look in her eyes, the way Caleb smirked when he found my account, the quiet calculation behind their smiles. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I reached out to my company's legal department first, asking for a referral to a trusted attorney. That's how I met Mark Sullivan, a calm, methodical lawyer who didn't waste words. I handed him every piece of evidence I had, screenshots of login attempts, the forwarded email, the text messages she'd sent me after the cafe incident. Mark studied them, his brow furrowed. This is more than harassment, he said finally. This is identity theft, attempted fraud, and unauthorized access to private data. You're right to take this seriously. The words identity theft made my stomach twist. To think my own mother had crossed that line, it felt unreal. Mark didn't hesitate. He guided me through filing for a restraining order at the Orlando courthouse. It was grueling. Paperwork, statements, hearings. but I stayed steady. Every signature, every affidavit was another layer of protection. When the judge finally signed the permanent restraining order, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: relief. Mom and Caleb were legally barred from contacting me or coming within 200 feet of my home or workplace. It wasn't just a document, it was a shield. For a while, things were quiet. I focused on work, buried myself in projects, and visited Dad more often. The diner was still running, old neon sign flickering, coffee brewing around the clock. But he looked healthier than I'd seen him in years. He'd started closing early, taking time for himself. We'd sit together after dinner, talking about everything and nothing. Those evenings reminded me what real family felt like: quiet, steady, unconditional. But peace didn't last long. 2 months later, I got an alert from my bank just before midnight. Someone had tried to transfer $10,000 from my savings account. The system blocked it automatically, thanks to the multi-step security I'd set up. But the attempt left me cold. I didn't need to guess who it was. I forwarded the alert to Mark immediately, and by morning, he'd filed a report with the court. Mom had violated the restraining order. This time, there would be consequences. Still, the incident left me hollow. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about control. Her refusal to accept that she couldn't reach me anymore, couldn't manipulate me into guilt. She was clawing at the last threads of a connection she'd severed decades ago. And the only thing that remained between us now was law. A few months later, I got an unexpected call from Aunt Ruth, Mom's older sister. We hadn't spoken since I was a child. Her voice was soft but steady, tinged with something like regret. "Julia, I heard what happened," she said. "I'm sorry." Marie's been like this for as long as I can remember. She used to borrow money from everyone, twist stories to get what she wanted. "None of this is your fault." Hearing that lifted a weight I didn't know I was still carrying. For years, I'd blamed myself. Wondered if I'd been too cold, too unforgiving. But Aunt Ruth's words painted a clearer picture. My mother hadn't changed. She'd just found new ways to take. After that call, I started seeing a therapist, a woman named Dr. Ellen Brooks, who specialized in family trauma. She helped me understand that closure didn't always come with apologies. Sometimes it came from acceptance. "You've been carrying her choices like they were your responsibility," she told me one afternoon, her tone calm but firm. But they never were. That sentence echoed in my head for days. Slowly, the guilt began to fade. The constant tension in my chest eased. I realized that every boundary I'd drawn, every act of saying no, wasn't cruelty. It was healing. Over the following year, my life quietly transformed. With therapy, I learned to stop replaying the same old questions that used to keep me awake. Why did she leave? Why wasn't I enough? I accepted that some people never change, no matter how much you want them to. The moment I stopped trying to make sense of her choices, I started to feel free. Dad came to visit Orlando more often. We'd take walks around Lake Eola, talking about simple things: the diner's new cook, my latest project at work, the stray cat that kept sneaking into his kitchen. I'd catch him studying me sometimes, a proud little smile tugging at his lips. "You've done good, Jules," he'd say, voice soft with emotion. "Better than I ever hoped for." Those moments meant more than any career milestone. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was running from the past. I was building something beyond it. Inspired by my own journey, I started a small charity in Orlando, a mentorship and scholarship program for kids from low-income families. I funneled part of my salary into it, wanting to give others the kind of chance I'd fought so hard for. My best friend, Kara, a social worker, helped me launch it, and my colleague Nina handled the data side. We called it the Second Start Initiative. The first year, we helped 8 students afford their first semester of college. Seeing their joy, their hope, it filled a space inside me I hadn't realized was still empty. Through all of it, Dad was my biggest cheerleader. He even hung a little newspaper clipping about the charity on the diner wall, right next to an old photo of us from when I was 10. "You're changing lives now," he told me one evening, tears glinting in his eyes. "Your mom might have given you life, but you made it worth something." That line stayed with me. As months passed, news about Mom and Caleb trickled in through relatives and mutual acquaintances. After their failed attempt to take money from me, most of the family had cut them off. Aunt Ruth told me they'd moved to a smaller town after Caleb dropped out of college. Apparently, the entitlement hadn't vanished. He'd been arrested for using someone else's credit card, while Mom kept drifting from one short-lived job to another. Hearing that didn't make me happy, but it didn't make me sad either. It just made sense. They'd spent so long chasing shortcuts that they'd forgotten how to live honestly. One rainy Sunday, I found myself cleaning my apartment and stumbled upon the old drawer where I'd kept my mother's birthday cards. There were so many. 2 decades of cold, perfunctory greetings. "Happy birthday. Hope you're doing well." No warmth, no love. Just paper reminders of absence. I read the last one again, the one she'd sent before she showed up at my door. For a moment, I felt the familiar sting of what could have been. But then I folded it neatly, walked to the balcony, and watched the rain blur the city lights. I let the card slip from my fingers into the recycling bin. It felt symbolic, quietly final. In therapy, Dr. Brooks once told me, healing isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing peace over pain every single day. That line echoed in my mind as I stood there, breathing in the scent of rain and asphalt. For years, I'd carried my mother's abandonment like a scar that defined me. Now I saw it for what it was, a lesson. Family isn't about blood. It's about loyalty, effort, and love freely given. I found that in Dad, in my friends who showed up when it mattered, in the kids we were helping through the charity. That was family. Not the people who broke me, but the ones who helped me rebuild. One evening, Dad and I sat on my balcony, watching the sunset stain the sky in orange and gold. He was sipping coffee, smiling faintly as the city lights flickered on below. "You know," he said, "your mom used to talk about moving to Florida one day. She said the sunsets here looked like second chances." I looked out at the skyline, then back at him. "Maybe she was right," I said, just not in the way she thought. He chuckled softly. "You've made your own second chance, kiddo. And you didn't need her to do it." I leaned my head on his shoulder, feeling the quiet weight of his love, the kind that never demanded anything, never wavered, even when life did. To anyone listening to my story, thank you for staying with me through it all. I hope you remember this. Sometimes letting go isn't weakness. It's the most powerful thing you can do. Don't chase people who walked away from you. Build with the ones who stayed. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what does family mean to you? I'd love to hear your story too.